Now, I know it's easy to criticize other people and a lot harder to criticize yourself, but I've been critical of a lot of roofers out there who are doing roof inspections, and they all seem to miss the basic fundamentals about roof leaks. Now, we came across a job the other day where an owner asked us to have a look at a leak on his roof. And he said, listen, I've already contacted my insurance. They've sent someone out. The insurance guy has gone onto the roof and he's found that there is a broken tile and a lot of tiles with hairline cracks on it. It just happens to be borrowed tiles, but that's another story. So the insurance roofer went up on the roof. He spotted this cracked tile, and it was easy for him to associate the cracked tile with the leak on the roof because it was in the same spot. So he reported in his report that the cracked tile had caused the leak and the tiles had to be replaced. Now that seems like a fairly logical conclusion, but when we got up on the roof and had a look at the area that was leaking, we found where the cracked tile was and where it had been repaired. And if we had just gone with the insurance assessor's report, we would have said, scope of works, we're going to replace the cracked tile. But we're always curious about why things happen. And when we took some tiles off around where the leak was, where the cracked tile was, we discovered that the roof was sagged. So straight away we thought, this is not quite right. If the roof is sagged and you have a cracked tile, you shouldn't have a leak. Well, you shouldn't have a leak where the cracked tile is. You could have a leak down in the eaves because the sarking is supposed to catch the water and drain it down to the gutters near the eaves. So you may have a leak further downstream, but chances are you won't get a leak where the cracked tile is. So when we discovered that the roof was sagged, curiosity got the better of us, so we took more tiles off. And guess what we found? There was a hole in the sarking just downstream of where the cracked tile was. And the insurance roofer, because he didn't take a lot of tiles out around the leakage area, had no idea that there was a hole in the sarking. So nowhere in the report did he state that there was a cracked tile, also a hole in the sarking that was letting the water in. So the repair would have been to repair the sarking and replace the cracked tile. So we all thought, what a lazy roofer to go out and do a roof assessment and not really dig deeply enough to why the roof is actually leaking. Because when he looked under the cracked tile, he could see sarking. So surely he would have put two and two together and gone, well, the tile's cracked, but we got sarking, so we shouldn't be getting a roof leak. So there should be another reason why the roof is leaking. He didn't keep going to figure out exactly why the roof leaked. Now, is this laziness? Well, I had the same criticism of myself not so long ago, because there was this little roof leak that we had been trying for about 5 years to track down and fix. And when we went back a short while ago, because it was still leaking, we finally decided to go back to first principles and assume that this was the first time we were looking at this particular leak, and how would we track down the reason why it was leaking. So the first thing that we have to do to locate a leak is to determine exactly where on the roof the leak was coming from. And when we went back to this first step and we located where the leak was, we went, oh God, we were too lazy. We just made an assumption which was totally incorrect. And that was the reason why we couldn't fix the leak, because we were looking at the wrong place. Now, thinking back 5 years ago, it was quite a classic error, because it was in a roof in the inner suburbs of Sydney, a long narrow house, and there is a pitched roof in the front and a flat skilling roof in the back. And you would go in the house and you would go through a series of archways, and there was a leak immediately past the last archway leading to the back of the house. And we naturally assumed that that particular archway, that wall, was the wall that separated the front pitch roof from the rear flat metal roof. So we thought, well, the leak's coming from where the pitch roof meets the flat roof, and that's the location that we need to look at, and that's where the leak's coming from, and that's where we got to concentrate our repairs. So we kind of spent the next 3 or 4 occasions over the next 4 or 5 years looking at the same spot to repair, and we couldn't figure out why the leak was still happening. So finally, this last time when we looked at it and went back to first principles and we looked at the roof, we went, oh, we're either stupid or we're crazy, because the archway was nowhere near where the pitch roof met the skillion roof. It was actually a third of the way down the skillion roof. So all these past years we were looking at the wrong place and repairing the wrong section of the roof. So that makes us quite crazy, right? And because of this, I've actually learned a new word. Now, I don't think a lot of you would know what this word means, but this word is AKRASIA. Now, this is the first time I've actually come across this word, because I was trying to figure out whether I was lazy or just crazy. And when I did some research, it seems that I was neither lazy nor crazy. I was just AKRASIA. You know you should be doing something, but you just don't get around to doing it. And we take a lot of these shortcuts in life where we know we got to do something, but we just don't get around to doing it. And this is one of the traps that can get us into trouble. And this is exactly the same trap that got us into trouble, because we knew that we had to exactly locate whereabouts on the roof the leak was. So instead of assuming that the archway was between the pitch roof and the flat roof, we should have gone out, done some measurements, and figured out on day one that the leak was a third of the way down the skillion roof and not at the transition. And if we had done so, then we would have had this little leak repaired and not have had to return several times in the last 5 years just trying to figure out where we went wrong. So in this case, the leak wasn't in the most obvious places and not the obvious weak points on the joints on the roof that would have been leaking. In fact, it was something quite simple and quite basic. And it's as basic as capillary action. Now, this leak was a very slow leak, and it would take a while for the stain to keep reappearing after the ceiling had been repainted. And the reason it was such a slow leak was because there was capillary action going through a loose screw that was feeding water through the rib of the clip lock profile roof and down into the ceiling. So the capping between the houses was secured by a screw through the capping and through the rib of this clip lock profile roof. And because this screw was slightly loose, the water was going in at the head of the screw, capillary action into the hole where the rib was, and it's causing a slight drip when there was a lot of rain, and just enough to cause the stain in the ceiling, which kept appearing years and years and years and years. So what's the lesson to be learned here? Well, don't let AKRASIA get the better of you. It is not laziness or craziness on your part that may be letting you down. It is just a weakness in the human psychology, which means that there's a resistance to doing the things that you are supposed to be doing.